Please ignore the random beer titles that you might have noticed when we first went live because I was still fucking with lower thirds. Anyway, it's a Saturday. It's a holiday weekend for some. Another reason to go and work and deal with dumbasses for others. Welcome to a tale of two weekends, mine of leisure and David's of holy shit, the only night I have free is Saturday. Can we do it on Saturday? So here we are on Saturday for Thanksgiving leftovers, meaning random shit from the news week thrown into one stacked up topic list because there's no way to focus on anything when the news is this wonky and broken on a holiday. You can't follow anything because everybody's like half-assed about when they're there and when they're not, and all the B-list backup news people are filling in for people, and it's just a hot mess. So we figured, let's talk about a little bit of everything. A little bit of everything, just like Thanksgiving leftovers.
And just a heads up for everyone who's watching, we will be going back to Thursday. We know, like, this past few weeks, we've been kind of bouncing around a little bit. We apologize for that. Some of that's my fault.
It's mostly
some of that is Lucas's fault. None of it is actually Lucas's fault, but I'm going to blame him anyway.
That's okay. That's okay. If you're here, say hi. Brian's here. What's up, Brian? Good to see you, buddy. Hope you're having a great Thanksgiving weekend, etc. We are going to dive right into the topics and the beer right after we check in. So, how are you with your scattered, wild schedule life? This is your first week back home from your weeks out of town, right?
I will say this.
Is it your first week? Like, did you come straight back to Thanksgiving week?
Yeah.
So you've had no normalcy for like 3 weeks running?
No. No, none at all. So I mean, it's been a time. It's been a time. So you know, we're getting through it all. It's
You're the de facto chef at the house. So did you and your mom do a thing?
Actually, since I had to work for Thanksgiving, not really. I made some sweet potato. So first, I was going to make butternut squash casserole to bring to my coworkers for Thanksgiving, and then in a continual slow moving isn't even the right word. It's moving at a clip. Moving dumpster fire of corporations that got too greedy with their supply chains. There was no butternut squash.
Really?
So I had to move to sweet potatoes, and then I had to create some sweet potatoes. Made a sweet potato with very lightly candied pecans on top.
Oh, that's cool.
Casserole, and then no one ate it.
Oh,
because we didn't have time. Because I want to put a myth to bed about our neighbors to the north. I want to put.
Hey, I'm a neighbor to the north now. What are you about to do?
No. I mean America's hat.
Oh.
Canada. See, what happened was there was a junior hockey tournament next door for Canada.
You mean in Bellevue at the Ford Ice Center or whatever?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really? Huh. So your tiny little extra wart on what used to be a relatively symmetrical Davidson County became a global destination for a brief moment in time?
So I want to make something clear about Canadians. Now, first of all, I understand that Canadians don't get the whole Thanksgiving thing. They have their Thanksgiving at some other time, and it's not that big of a deal.
Hey, buddy. What's up?
But everyone has this perception that Canadians are just super nice and friendly. And they are. They are also all potential serial killers. Every last one of them. I have no doubt in my mind.
Is this a recent revelation to you?
No. This is here's the thing. If you're a Canadian who has come to Nashville, first of all, something's wrong. You have plenty of good places in Michigan, New York, Vermont, Maine. Why the fuck are you this far south? That is problem number one. Because you have to ask yourself, why have you come this far south? And the answer that is invariably when you get to Nashville, it is because I have come to be the pinnacle of asshole. I have come to shed my Canadianness as much as I physically can and embrace the whole of sphincterdom, just to become the whole sphincter. And they drink like fish. They don't tip.
That's uniquely exhausting. I had no idea.
They are
that.
And when I say drink like fish, I have seen many Nashvillians drunk. I've seen many Southerners drunk. They're normally pretty mild about like, I'm running up on the limit. They're gonna have to cut me off. Not the Canuckistanis. The Canuckistanis will see the line of drunk. They see you looking at them being like, I shouldn't serve that guy anymore. He's blotto. And then they're like, do it. Do it. Do it. Like they will take that Canada Goose and fly it straight over the line.
So it's
like they're
they are the embodiment in drinking of the emperor meme. Do it.
Yep. They really are. They will go straight for like fall down blackout drunk. Well, and they won't stop. They'll just keep on going.
Far worse than my Thanksgiving. We did the hour and change trip north to the lady's family Thanksgiving, and it was fun. Good food. It's enjoyable. I try not to rub it in because I try to be very conscious of people that, like you, are working their asses off this weekend. But I did again get to enjoy the sheer volumes of foolish stupidity coming out of the next room as several of the Trump-inclined pontificated in front of the people that are normally not nuts until the Trump people make them say things out loud. And I forgot what it was. There were so many layers of typical things, but of course it was mostly sore loser sort of thing. A whole lot of, they say he lost, but he only lost by 5,000 votes. Well, tough titties.
Hey, I've got news. 5,000 votes is more than you had. So yeah.
So yeah, there was that. But yeah, it was my weird highlight to Thanksgiving was actually sitting down and purposefully watching football for the first time in a while because the family that we were around was part of a very loyal and long-suffering trend of Lions fans here. And
hey, they are second in the division right now. I want to point this out.
The reason that I sat down and watched a game, like, okay, let's just watch and see, and I'll be damned if it wasn't one of the best games I've seen as far as American football is concerned. So that's kind of cool. Speaking of football, Rob, hello, Rob. Welcome to the show. Between football and World Cup, I need a politics break. And it's sunny in California with no snow, which must mean the sun's still up. It's not the case here.
Yeah, he's in Eastern time. I'm in Central time. It is dark as fuck.
2 hours on you, 3 hours on me. But yeah, so let's drink some things and talk about stuff, David. How's that sound?
That sounds like a good idea.
So normally, if you've never been with us, this whole concept is basically our recreational time and our relationship of drinking craft beer and talking about politics and current events, both with our leftist stripes. And that was who we were for these years we've known each other, which apparently are about 10 or something.
Yes.
So we decided in 2020, why don't we just put this whole relationship on the internet and see what happens? Also, much like the 3-day binge I've enjoyed this holiday weekend of Andor, it was our little piece of rebellion. So, which by the way, it's a great show. I now am convinced it's a great show. People that didn't give it a chance, sucks to be you. So, It's normally a two-topic situation. We would welcome everybody, do a little roundup of news called the Hot Take Happy Hour, and move into a couple topics for the evening. But this evening, it's all just a few random leftovers for Thanksgiving. And before we can do that, we have to start drinking, and that's why we start with a very important question: what you drinking?
All right, go first because I've mislaid my bottle opener. That's why I'm looking around like
I
staring.
know you were searching desperately for something.
Like, no!
This probably means that you're going to have to dive under the desk and start rummaging through. So David and I realized we both had a similar, the same brewery on our list today. So I'm going to go first with Alpha King from Three Floyds. So I've got that multi-pack that I picked up some time ago in Munster, Indiana, at Three Floyds, and everybody has heard me rave about how much I like Three Floyds art. So I always try to show off the bitchin' labels. So this is Alpha King, and it's their pale ale, or one of their pale ale. I'm sure they haven't just made one pale ale, but this is the one that I chose to throw into the mix. They call this a bold yet balanced American pale with slight sweetness and aggressive citrus hoppiness, which I can dig. And the description that you will find is a little bit more colorful on Untappd. It's like caramel sweetness. And that's a little more specific. I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. So I haven't tried this ever. David also has a Three Floyds, so we're both going to go back-to-back Three Floyds. And I'm wearing my Space Station middle finger shirt again in celebration of the Three Floydsiness of our first break. So here we go. Let's have at it. Actually, I can get down with that caramel estimation. I like that. That is pretty accurate. Definitely citrus hoppiness. It's, boy, I tell you what, it's almost an IPA. I mean, it's
it's Three Floyds. It's going to be intense.
Yeah. So yeah, that's good. I like it. I actually like it more than I thought I would, because usually pale ale, I'm like, but actually this is pretty rad. I would actually drink a bunch of this in a warmer set of weather time periods. Speaking of, I forgot to say, right before the show tonight, I put up our storm windows, which was something for the last couple of weeks here in Michigan. I had been looking at the windows and thinking, should have done this before there were 2 feet of snow outside. But we got a few days here of 40s and 50s and thawed everything out, so I could actually, set down a ladder out there. And if I'd the way it was for a hot minute, if you dropped a storm window while you were working on it, or dropped a screen when you were done taking a screen out, you'd have never found it. It would have fully, into the snow, never be seen again. But we're back to pre-snow, and we'll get more snow at some point. Pre-snow, that sounds.
It's climbing back up into the 60s for December, because Tennessee is weather by Sybil.
It's a little like that here. I mean, mid 50s ish today. So there was a little of that. Anyway, back to the beer, David. You've got your own Three Floyds in the mix.
I do. I have.
Tasty as fuck. Here, since the labels are such a thing.
There we go.
Yeah. Oh, that's.
We've got.
Cool.
Yeah.
We've got this. Basically, like, what if beer and heavy metal had babies? Every single time you look at the labels.
Yeah.
So that is the Cherry
Canis Invertus. Oh, that is tart.
If you came here for mouth sounds, ladies and gentlemen, you're in the right place.
Yeah. By the way, we also have an ASMR channel now.
That would be so nasty.
Have you seen some of the ASMR channel?
Fair.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying. We also have our OnlyFans up. I don't. So about this, it is tart. I know they say it's a red ale. I can't get to the red ale. I get cherries.
Well, it clocks
So
in-
many
oh,
shit.
I didn't. I just now realized that my Alpha King is 6.66%.
Yeah, it's 3 Floyds. None of it's going to be like, and none of this is going to be civilian beer.
I'm
Okay.
so happy with that. So yours is 8.5. It's billed as a Flanders Red, Flemish style red ale. brewed
Yeah,
with sherry.
here's the thing. If there's anything red in this, I wouldn't know.
Is
because-
the sour element like basically taking over? So that's what the character really is.
It's got this little tiny front end of red ale. Like literally, I have a quarter, half a second
Yeah.
of red ale, and then it's
All right.
straight to like choking the back of my tongue. Like it asked for it, and it really didn't. There's been a miscommunication here.
But do you like
No,
it?
you know,
Labeling
here's the thing.
truth aside, do you like it? Every single brewer out there is going to watch you and be like, "Well, this motherfucker smokes while he drinks my beer. I don't trust anything he has to say."
It's not lit, you bastards.
But it will be. Just
Oh, it will.
give us
It will
a
be.
news topic or two, and it will be.
All right. So if I strategically place my tongue,
Lady.
I get more. I get more of the red ale. The red ale is great. I get the feeling that what happened is they weren't confident on the finish on this beer, and they fruited it as a result. I mean, so for those of you who aren't familiar with this tactic by many brewers, beer goes through a number of stages when it's fermenting. There's a particular state where commonly referred to as just simply diesel, right? Because you drink it and the fermentation and hasn't really completed yet, and the common phrase is that it tastes like diesel fuel. Sometimes beer doesn't leave that state, or you get concerned that it won't leave that state. It's one of the main reasons why so many American Berliner Weiss, and I know I harp on this sometimes, American Berliner Weiss does not taste like German Berliner Weiss. And the reason is because so many American brewers hose it up and they can't get it out of diesel. And so to make it palatable, they throw in a bunch of fruit. So you get a little bit of the wheat flavor and then you get a bunch of fruit. So that's why so many American Berliner Weisses are sour or fruity. Whereas that would not be a typical thing that you would see in most German breweries if they were making a quote-unquote Berliner Weiss.
I tell you what, I'm looking at some people's photos, and if I walked up on this with no bottle next to it, I'd have said red ale. It definitely looks red
Well, here,
ale.
I will pour some of it out here. That one's not clean. That was not clean either.
I wouldn't have assumed you'd have anything clean. The whirlwind of life.
I'm going to pour...
Uh-oh.
So that's
Terrified now. Okay, there you go.
what it looks like.
Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, the lighting isn't conducive to seeing through it.
Right, but you can, I mean, you can definitely tell well, I mean, you can't see through it now.
No, I'm saying if you had it with a light source, like a window of sunlight, you'd see. But there's a little when you drink it, you see a little.
No, even if you had a window of sunlight, it's that cloudy. All right. So when I take a big swig of it from the stein, I think maybe part of it is the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Drinking it straight from the bottle. When I take a big swig of it from the stein, I'm getting a lot more of the red ale. But yeah, I feel like these guys weren't confident on the finish,
Maybe
and
not.
they fruited it as a result. Maybe they were concerned it wasn't coming out of diesel. It is a sour, definitely. I have to say, as sours go, though, I like this. Typically, when I'm drinking a sour, I like something that's a little bit more uniform throughout, and I think maybe that's what I'm getting with this. It's a good beer. Like if someone handed this to me, I'd be like, "Thank you." Like I would
Right.
still be.
Fair. That's fair.
I gotta say though, this would be like a rare thing for me to grab. This would not be something I'd grab on a regular basis. I mean, like lots of Three Floyd stuff is, I think, very easily lends itself to, yeah, I want to get that every time I go to the bar, or I want to grab a 6-pack of that every time I go to the store. This would not be one of those. This would be like, hey,
You're in the mood for it, grab it. Otherwise,
I'm in the mood for one of these or two of these.
See, what I was thinking with this one was that I like this. It's a quality pale ale so much that I like it and would keep it around and would cook with it, but it's almost a waste. Like I'm making chili right now in the crock pot downstairs, and there's some upper hand in that little upper hand beer in that chili concoction, and it's smelling great. But I'm thinking this would have even been better, but I wouldn't want to waste it on that. Like I want to drink this.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is still good. I still like this. I think the only thing that maybe, I got to be honest, like if they were complaining about me smoking,
It's helpful.
I gotta say it's helped a bit. It honestly has. I want to point out I only smoke pure tobacco cigarettes, so I don't do any of that cheap tobacco shit like Camel.
I'm gonna jump into a long question from Brian here real quick before we get into news. 3 questions for Lucas about Michigan. 1, where does the word Michigan come from? 2, what do people from Michigan call themselves? Michiganders? Yes, you're correct. 3, what is the collective noun for a group of people from Michigan? A parliament or a wave? I don't know if that last one is factual and trivia or if it's making shit up, because the answer is the same as 2, Michiganders.
He's. I want to. You want an answer?
Or a wave. I think I get it now. It's a political throwback joke to last week or whenever the fuck the elections were.
Yeah. Do you want to see why he's asking these questions?
The word Michigan, I believe, is Indian or
yes,
First Peoples or Native American or whichever era of political correct terminology is fine. I tend to be stubborn. So, yeah.
This is why he's asking those questions.
That is why. That brings us around how we always include Brian in our breaks with his own little graphic if he brings us a review of his particular recreational substance of the evening, which is Khalifa Kush. No complaints, but I've had better. 22%. Only 22% THC. Still tastes good. I can't wait to have like a sidebar with Brian and get more educated. But yes, we always encourage the sharing of whatever anyone else is drinking or not drinking to hop in with us. And now he's taking random guesses at yes, a cuck of Michiganders would be the right
cluck. There's an L in there, dude. There's an L.
I was going straight for ways to insult the right. I thought it was and a bevy would be
Jesus.
A bevy would be the number of voters on the left, according to the blue state that we now have. So there you go. Anyway, it's always good to have folks jumping in. Please feel free to continue to jump in. Let's move on to some topics, David. We've brought a few. We've got some things up our sleeve. The first and easy one is basically the sentiment of anybody who's trying to, A, respect the athletics of actual football, also known as soccer, but B, try to get past all the horse shit involved. So with that, I've evoked horse shit and fuck you, FIFA. This armband thing. You seen this, Buzz? It's pretty.
Yep.
It's pretty.
Oh yeah.
Pretty interesting.
It doesn't shock me at all. It doesn't shock me at all.
First of all, this particular World Cup seems to be shitting the bed on the prude factor hardcore this year.
Oh, it was always going to.
Kerfuffle is wildly like.
It just keeps on getting worse. So here's the problem. There's 3 things going on right now. First of all, FIFA cannot.
A major worldwide tournament of sports that draws people from everywhere in a whacked out, like fanatical religious location. That's problem number one.
Well, no. I mean, there's three things going on. First problem is FIFA cannot get out of its own way when it comes to corruption. They make it. They've made the head body, the organizing body, so dependent on money, and because I mean, you get to be head of FIFA, you've got a modest as head of major sports organizations goes, you've got a pretty good, but it's not as big as, like, say, the commissioner of the NFL or the commissioner of Major League Baseball. But then there's the side benefits, right? It's the envelope that gets dropped off at your hotel room. And at this point, it's almost expected. I think is the problem. And the problem is that there's nothing in their organization to stop it. There's no way because FIFA is an international organization, not a national organization. Like, if the commissioner of Major League Baseball were to suddenly start taking envelopes on the sly, Congress would be there with their boot in his ass in minutes, right? Being like, come on, dude. I mean, look at what they did. Congress intervened in college football, right? They made them say, hey, you have to start doing a playoff instead of this random reporters choose champions bullshit. I mean, it's like the year University of Central Florida claimed to be the national champions of football, and everyone's looking around being like, what?
But why? Yeah. Or how?
Yeah.
It's weird because my whole adult life, all I've ever heard is just negative shit about FIFA. So it's like, you don't even expect, like, it would be weirder to have no fucked up headlines. Like, that would be weirder. When the World Cup comes around, the first thought is, okay, cool, what kind of wacky shit is FIFA going to get up to and get in the news for? Aside from the standard issue, exploitation of labor, exploitation of the location.
Well, no, these are all relatively new problems for FIFA, because FIFA, again, the Gulf states have never really gotten it into their head. They're like, generally speaking, they've been like, when it comes to world events, we want to take a back seat because we don't want to seem crazy. Also, we always lose.
About the whacked out no alcohol thing, and now the
well, no, it's not just the alcohol or the gay or anything else. First of all, usually Gulf states lose most sporting events.
Yeah.
There's not. I mean, if you look at the Olympics and you look at the number of gold medals held by Egypt, Sudan, like Egypt, Qatar, the UAE, Iran, Iraq, Syria, right? Jordan. It's a pretty short list. They don't normally want to host things where there are people like, "Hey, let's go and watch our team lose." And
very good point.
But I mean, I want to come back. The second thing that's happening with this is the Qatari government is in a bit of a bind. So, for those of you who don't know the significance of Qatar, we have a freaking massive naval base in Qatar. We are the primary employer. The United States government is the primary employer in Qatar because we have such a huge naval base in Qatar. That is Qatar is the headquarters of U.S. Central Command. So we got stuff there. This puts the Qataris in a odd situation.
Right.
First of all, none of their neighbors like them. Partially because they are a host to a freaking massive naval base for the infidels. Right? People get mad at the Saudis because we maintain Prince Sultan Air Base, and after some twitches back and forth with the Saudi government, we've kind of backed off of Prince Sultan Air Base. The Turks got a little fuzzy on us, and so we backed off of Incirlik Air Base. But every time we do that, in order to maintain presence in the region, we go and double down again on U.S. Central Command in Qatar. So, I mean, we're talking about more ships than you would see at Newport News, Virginia, which is one of our major naval yards here in the United States. So the Qataris are in a weird situation. On one hand, they don't want to seem too dickish at any or too fundamentalist at any given point in time. But the Qataris also don't like being the butt of everyone's problems, right? Or like, the Saudis don't like them, the Iranians don't like them, the UAE doesn't like them. Nobody likes them. They're all, by the way, Qatar is also the headquarters of Al Jazeera, which a lot of Gulf states don't like either, because Al Jazeera is nominally an independent news organization.
I mean,
As far as
it's a pretty damn good, like, if you're trying to go out there and do your thing, do your due diligence, see what every news outlet is saying, they're a good one to run shit by.
yeah, Al Jazeera is not a bad news, and they're nominally independent of the Qatari government. So the Qataris draw a lot of flack, and I feel like part of what's happening right now is the Qataris are trying to bone up on some of their, but yeah, we're Muslim just like you, bona fides.
Oh, you think it's an overcompensation?
I feel like this is a little bit of an overcompensation. I think is Qatar a misogynistic, by our standards, a misogynistic fundamentalist regime? Yes. Partially because
By
we've
our standards, like by any standard. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be real.
Well, no. Well, see, but the thing is, by the standards of other Gulf states, they're practically,
They're practically a bacchanal.
yeah, they're flower children. They're whatever.
enough. Okay.
So I feel like there's a little bit of overcompensation happening right now. I feel like if they'd done this in the UAE, and that we would be seeing the opposite, right? Because the UAE has its bona fides in check. Of no, we're genuinely Muslim. I feel like the UAE would be more open to, hey, we would like more of your money. We want to show you that we can be just like you
I don't
within certain
understand-
designated areas.
I don't understand the play on this beer thing. Like, to me, there has to be an enormous liability that they've opened themselves up to. Fucking with InBev. I mean, you're
They-
fucking
they-
with InBev.
They don't care. They'll just throw the money around. They'll just. I mean, if it comes down to it,
Pay them
they'll-
whatever
they'll-
they
they'll-
tell them is a settlement. I mean,
yeah. I mean, think about it. From the perspective of Qatar, they will literally just turn around to the United States Navy and be like, "And here's your new rent, and we'll pay it." And here's the thing: we'll pay it because
the thing is, when you're Budweiser and you lose this much inventory potentially, because I mean, it is Budweiser, so it'd be hard to tell if it wasn't good. But there's going to be shit that doesn't make it in the supply line that they have to ship back. Like,
well, then there's the cost of them shipping it back.
right.
No, I
Like,
mean,
it has to be some kind
also
of financial
you have to
consequence.
remember that it had to pass through Qatari customs.
Yeah.
So,
So overlook on beer at the last minute seems grossly irresponsible financially. I mean, I get what you're saying if they're trying to have a big Muslim flex, but it just seems like exposing themselves to a lot of liability from what InBev will undoubtedly want to do to settle the financial score.
I will tell you this, and I'm not Muslim, but rather Arab. Very often, Arab businesses do not usually grasp the concept of liability. They operate very much on a policy of caveat emptor, which, if you're not familiar with that phrase, it means buyer beware. So if they feel like they're in control, they'll be like, "What are you going to do? Are you going to pull the tournament now? You can't now." So we're going to change.
It wouldn't be pulling the tournament. It would be whatever contract liability they have with Budweiser for the sale of beer. In the stadium.
And from their perspective, what's Budweiser going to? What are you going to do to us?
Sue.
What? But where? And from what?
know.
See that's
The
kind of
end
the thing.
my knowledge.
See that's kind of the thing is where is Budweiser going to sue? Is Budweiser going to sue in a Qatari court? Well, the Qataris going to be like, well, alcohol is banned anyway, so we don't care. They could sue at FIFA's headquarters in France, and the Qataris would be like, that's nice. Are you going to seize assets? Because we'll just simply move them someplace else. Which, I mean, this is a situation in which, unless you're dealing, if foreign money was being used to pay for the construction of all these venues, there would be leverage. But there's not. But the thing is, the Qataris very intentionally did this in such a way, and people have asked, like, so thus far the Qataris have spent something like $200 billion. This is by far and away, by a magnitude of like 400 or 500, the most expensive World Cup ever.
Yeah.
The Qataris have pulled out all the stops to bribe all the people and line all the pockets to make sure that this went through. Which is sort of point number 3 of what's happening with this. On one hand you have the flex, then you have FIFA corruption, and the last point is you have just like China overflexed on the Olympics and has continued to overflex on the Olympics. It's a thing for if your perception of yourself is as at least a partial pariah state, which the Qataris are a pariah state in terms of their behavior as a society, but they're also a pariah state amongst other Gulf states.
Right.
Right? So they will do whatever it takes to push more money into this system. Do I think they're going to settle with InBev? Maybe. I think maybe they might look at it. They might look at they might look at InBev and be like, you can sue us, but are you going to stop importing to sell to the U.S. sailors at the base or the foreign nationals that come?
If you bring trouble, then we will start to block you from importing to sell.
Exactly. And
so, yeah, it might be one of those things where
someone else will show up.
Rich people have to walk away and say fuck it. Let's get back to the gay thing. This One Love armband thing kind of, it pisses me off in a mild way because, again, like I said at the top, nothing negative about FIFA is ever surprising. But the armband is the One Love armband featuring I'm reading cheating off the description so I don't fuck this up. Features an outline of a heart striped in different colors intended to be worn by captains from England, Netherlands, Belgium, Denmark, Germany, Switzerland, and Wales at the World Cup to promote inclusion and display of solidarity with people of different genders and sexual identities. So now you've got basically the FIFA folks trying to, no doubt, carry forth the flex that you were mentioning of Qatar, and then the nations involved being like, well, fuck you, buddy. So it's an interesting thing to see kind of going on. This quote that really stands out for me: it's quite scary for LGBTQ plus communities around the world to see our lives be so controversial. It's become this quite painful, drawn-out debate that is questioning on a global scale the validity of LGBTQ plus lives. Now, that reaches me. That makes me feel kind of like, oh, God damn, what a shitty thing.
Well, and I also want to point out,
at the same time, you couldn't be that surprised at this, though.
Well, and you shouldn't have been, because what's the penalty for being homosexual in Qatar?
Probably death or some fucking...
Yes, it is death.
Yeah.
So, which is ironic because, I one of the jokes from so many U.S. service members who I've talked to, at least who have served in the Middle East, is they're like, dude, like, there's gay Arabs everywhere. And it's an interesting, the way I had it explained to me, and it made perfect sense when he explained it to me, and I'm like, that begins to make sense. Misogyny works in their society because women are for procreation, and if you're just having sex for pleasure, well, then fucking a guy is fine.
Which is just so many layers of clueless. It's just like, oh, okay, so that's how it's got to work. I got to decide I'm in to do.
Yeah, you're not gay. You just like, having man ass every now and then, like to get the rocks off, and then you go home to your wife and you're like, okay, let's make a baby.
I don't want to even know where masturbation falls for these motherfuckers.
You're not. No flogging the imam.
Oh, David just steadily adding to the reasons why we're marked on lists if we travel internationally. We're on somebody's list. We're already on domestic lists.
Oh, I'm sure. But I mean, yeah, that's. I can't tell you. Like, so I had a friend who was part of an Air Force team that was responsible for setting up infrastructure in Iraq, and he'd be like, "Dude, it was actually a problem about getting Iraqi workers to be like, okay, on break, I need you not to fuck each other, please." I need you. I mean, because honestly, and this is a common theme that's been expressed about Arab culture is about punctuality and timeliness is not necessarily a feat. Punctuality and timeliness, at least in Western civilization, has been very closely tied to our industrialization. Right, things have to happen at very specific times, and as a consequence, our entire society built itself into a very punctual civilization. Right. Things have to happen at particular times. Work starts at a very particular time. You need to be there at that time. Work ends, hopefully, at a specific time. You leave at that time. As a consequence, lunch happens at a specific time.
Right.
Dinner happens at a specific time. Happy hour is something that's almost universal in Western civilization. From the end of work, which should be around 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, right? We do these drink specials to convince you to come and drink before you go home to dinner, right? And the reason it ends at 7 is because 7 is dinner and 5 is the end of work, right? I mean, there's so many things that we've built around punctuality. So he was talking about, like, first of all, like, trying to convince them to get to work on time was a problem. Like, we need you here at the.
Had friends or at least one coworker kind of joke about Arab time.
Yeah.
Hawaii time. If Brian, I'm sure will have some comment on that. I learned about Hawaii time the one time I ever traveled to Hawaii. I gotta say, I don't think I hate Hawaii time, but it doesn't always work out for.
But so they'd say, okay, you could, like, we're gonna take a 15, 30-minute break, right? And they'd be like, okay, so what I need you all to do is I need you all to get some water, sit down, and then I need you not to have a 30-minute fuck session.
Wow. All right, speaking of hypocrisy about gays and inciting negativity against gay folks of various stripes, let's talk about the right wing, David. You had this on our list, and I think it's always present lately. Essentially cheering violence in every corner, and we've seen the consequences of this rhetoric, and then we've seen the fucking bullshit tap dancing by, like, Boebert saying, I'm always blamed. Well, yeah, bitch, you are blamed because you're the one that's both guns, and hate the gays.
I mean, it is, and I having watched the reaction, which is, it's so naked this time of, yeah, they deserve to die. I think if this was 7 years ago, 6 years ago, you would not hear this many conservatives openly say, well, yeah, they deserve to die.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're porking the same gender according to these people's hate theology. Now, to be clear, we're talking mostly about the Club Q thing. I'm interested to see what happens with the Walmart shooter guy, but boy, has it been a week for guns in the U.S. of A. And, like, I'm really hoping the Walmart guy, a little bit selfishly, I'm hoping he's not just a disgruntled coworker kind of thing. Like, I'm actually hoping
he's
that
not.
There's some more to that than just hates life and his coworkers. I'm hoping there's some reasons outside Walmart. Because while I'm happy to get on a train of Walmart blame and say, hey, look at the miserable life that Walmart gives people, it makes them want to kill people, I'm very happy to play that fiddle. But I'd rather not. I'd rather examine what drove this person externally to have this level of desperation and anger. But I don't see a targeting to it. I think it's just in a bubble of nutty. Ironically, buying the gun the same day, which is why I often point out that we should require waiting many days to obtain said gun.
Here's the thing: waiting periods are nice. I support those. Background checks are good. We need to have universal background checks. Digitized. I'm going to get really close to the mic on this one. Digitized background checks, because right now they can't digitize any records. They have to take PDF photos of the record and then scroll through because you are not allowed by federal law to digitize records of gun purchases.
Just astonishing the stupid little roadblocks that the gun-obsessed right wing has inserted into this over the years, which leads us to where we are now.
Well, it's the guns. I mean, here's the honest to God truth. It's the guns. People are like, well, there's violence in France per capita, a hell of a lot less. There are guns in the Netherlands. People like there was a mass shooting in I don't know, Rotterdam or something the other day, and they'll point to that and be like, how many mass shootings in the Netherlands is that for the year?
Right.
1. Here it's literally twice a week, 3 times a week, 4 times a week.
Well, and there's something to be said for the way that we uniquely in this country combine fear politics with general fear social theories. Like, we don't just have politics based in fear. We have social theory deeply rooted in fear.
I mean, so do other countries.
And common normalized religious fanaticism.
And so do other countries.
Over access to guns.
Yep. It's the over access to guns that's the key thing. Like, I'll give you an example.
But
the
David,
Danes.
Let's at least be specific in pointing out that we have a whole construct of other shit that makes us crazy. That's unique. Like, the other countries don't have the same capitalist obsessions that we do. They don't have the same "fuck you" and "fuck your neighbor too" kind of mentality and policy.
I'm going to use Denmark as an example. So, Denmark, if you're outside of Copenhagen, can be a pretty conservative place. The Danes actually are considered by European standards to be kind of bumpkins.
I mean,
and
but religious fanaticism.
Yes.
To the extent that
Oh yes.
To the celebrating deaths of gay folks in a gay club kind of level?
Actually, maybe. Yeah.
I'm not sure about that.
Now, outside of Copenhagen, yeah.
We're uniquely fear-based.
No.
Straight up, like, horrible.
Even the Dutch.
Iran.
Even the Dutch have these rural if you're outside of Rotterdam and Amsterdam and you go into what rural parts of the Netherlands exist, you're still looking at people who are like, well, at least he wasn't gay. I mean, you're still looking at mentalities like that. If you're in large parts of southwestern France, right, in Gascony, if you're in northwestern France, in Brittany, we're still running into that. Even in, like, the UK, if you're in southwestern England, in Cornwall, if you're in rural Wales, But the difference between all these places is, and a lot of it is religiously based. A lot of these are, when you look at population centers, no, we don't have these problems. When you look at these rural sections of the country, I mean, you wonder why France continuously flirts with fascism every single time there's an election, right? And the National Front keeps on narrowly being kicked, denied power. The thing that keeps on propelling them to that near point is rural France.
But it's not just our enshrining of guns as some sort of
no, it's pretty much it. It's pretty much it.
Create a uniquely toxic environment in this country.
Here's the thing. There are a lot of toxic environments in Europe. There's a lot of toxic environments in a lot of places.
Dude, I'm like 100%.
It's guns.
Bowling for gun. I'm 100% bowling for Columbine on this topic. It is the confluence of our obsession with making guns a central value of our society.
It's the guns.
Meeting with
it is
our
the guns.
toxically fucking wretched values as a capitalist, religiously fucked up, fear-based, media out of control society. I think
Look,
that
okay, I'll give you an example.
if you took out one, the other would still exist in either of those areas, but we are unique in this combination.
No, I mean it's just the guns. It's just the
think
guns.
so.
Well, okay, I'll give you an example of
We're
a
also
staunch.
uniquely stupid in a lot of cases, and I have a feeling Brian's probably typing the comment now because he likes to frequently point out that you can argue about whether people or the guns are the problem, but the people can be the problem. Why would you give the people the guns if they are the
Right.
problem? So
Exactly.
no matter how you slice it, it's
here's the thing: is there's
American
crazy.
fuckery that's very unique.
Look at Hungary. Look at Hungary, right? Hungary is arguably right now in the throes, and they have arguably kind of always been there, of a mildly, and I say this as best as I can, mildly fascist government, right? But Hungary doesn't have the shooting problem, right? Hungary doesn't have mass shootings. And it's because the Hungarian government would never look at their people and be like, you know what? Go buy more guns.
And you all guns. Well, and then to get back to our main reason for bringing this up, I don't know how many countries have an active political movement of bigotry that's actively encouraging and celebrating violence against those that they've othered.
The Hungarian government? Oh, you betcha. Even the Polish government wanders into that arena on a regular basis when it comes to gays and other groups. Eastern Europe is a hotbed of minority, anti-sexual minority, anti-racial minority sentiments, even inside their governments, right? And again, Hungary just happens to be the at the forefront currently. They are dicks about it.
Olivia, by the way. Hi, Olivia.
Hi, Olivia.
Way too many currently. I'm not sure which thing we're talking. Oh, here we go. Nationalism thing hasn't just been our issue lately. David, I think you're right about the gun thing. It absolutely enables the play out of how this all works, but I don't think it's in a vacuum. And what you said about talking about the right wing and violence this week when we brought our topics up, that's a huge weird piece of this. Is just this. It's gone beyond. We normally beat the drum about they want war, they want civil war, they want this, they want that, but they're just satisfied to have a club get shot up a little bit here and there.
Oh no, they're not satisfied. That's the thing. That's I would argue that's why they're amplifying the message. Like when people are turning, they're in favor of it. And again, and yes, we do keep on beating this drum about these people want a civil war. And the reason we beat this drum is I feel like there's so many in Democratic leadership and leftist leadership who don't want to admit, one of the things that annoys me so much, and I say this as someone who came from the Republican Party, who was part of the reason I was over on the Republican Party was because I'm like, oh, well, the Democrats are all huggy-feely types. And now the Republicans, in their same way, are huggy-feely types, but angry. It's angry hug. I don't know how other to describe it. Like it's emotion, not logic, which
it's the
is good
between poor me, poor you. Come here, let's hug, and sitting around a fire outside the trailer, going, yeah, Bubba. Yeah, that hurts my feelings too. Let's be angry about it. Like it's a different.
Yeah,
it's like the Democratic or / liberal point of view is to bleed hearts together and poor us and poor me and poor you and not a single fucking sack of nuts between them. And the Republican side of the right wing side of that fence is let's be angry together based on shallow emotional evaluations of fucking horse shit nonsense.
Right.
And it just doesn't. I don't know where you settle in any of this because you get all these sick elements like look there, they deserve to die. I will say the silver lining in Club Q thing has been being able to watch that fat fucking neckbeard incel motherfucker's face all over TV beat to shit And I've really had to stop myself when I say, "Oh, it's too bad they didn't kill him," because that's the easy way out. I kind of love the fact that he got the fuck beat out of him in the process, and he's had to show up. And I don't buy his they them fucking.
Oh no! His defense attorney pulled that immediately out to try and save him from hate crime.
This is
charges.
a really cynical right wing ploy by trying to paint him as some kind of non-binary. Fuck that motherfucker.
Yeah, no.
He's
So
the biggest fucking obviously straight incel fucking male I've ever fucking seen recently. Fuck.
and I it needs to be pointed out.
I hope one of the times they smacked him with a gun, they fucking nailed his balls. Fucker. I don't know how they didn't kill him. To be honest with you. The self-control of a military person taking him down and not fucking ending him right there, that's some restraint.
Yeah. But I mean, I want to come back to this. And it's one of the things that annoys me about...
David, I know why.
Yeah, why?
And I know why he didn't kill him. Because the military actually knows how to use enough force to do a thing. But unlike cops, they know when to stop.
For those of you listening, you cannot see me smiling harder.
Instead of being ex-cop, he's ex-military, so he knew how to beat the shit out of somebody and still succeed at subduing them, as opposed to having to kill them because they don't fucking know any better.
Mission objectives. Mission objective. Anyway, I want to come back to this point, and it's one of the things that annoys me about our leadership is failing to recognize that. We keep on talking about how the right is now glorifying. Like at CPAC last year, they had a big banner that said, "We are domestic terrorists." These people, and this is the thing I like using that stuff as a foil, but I also have to point out when we're having these discussions that, to be honest, what they were attempting to do was be cheeky and cynical. No. I mean, here's the thing. They aren't cheeky or cynical. These are not smart people. They use that as a cover. They say that as a cover. What the thing is, what happens every single time? They mean what they say. They aren't capable of double entendre. These are not people who are capable of holding
what they really think if you just listen.
These are not people who are capable of holding two thoughts in their head. They do not have a bicameral mind. These are less evolved than the robots in Westworld, dude. No. The robots in Westworld are an improvement over these people. The whole they will always tell you exactly what they want to do and what they think they should do, and the
trick is that not enough of us have been listening in a lot of cases.
Exactly,
and that's not the leaders on the left.
This is the problem, and you listen to these people, and you're like every now and then you can be talking to someone on the left, and you're like, well, what I'm actually trying to say is, like, okay, so what actually happened was you let your knowledge, like you opened a thesaurus and you got erect. And
what you're saying, David, is the left needs to learn to adopt a fuck around and find out.
Right, and because here's the thing. I will say this about what happened at Club Q. We fought back. And what happened immediately after in Texas? This is one of the things that strikes me as amazing. What happened immediately after in Texas? There was a drag queen story hour at a local library. And what happened? Antifa showed up and stood at the door armed. Right? They stood at the door armed, and other armed right-wing fascist militia showed up and tried to start shit. And Antifa did not take... And this is one of the things everyone's like, Antifa is the... Here's the thing. Do I agree 100% with Antifa? No. Are half of them
clear, the movement,
kooky?
The movement, because there isn't an organization, the movement of opinions that align with an anti-fascist point of view in a militant exercise. That's what we mean when we say that, because... hate to break it to you, right-wingers.
There is no Antifa headquarters.
It's a point of view. It's not a thing. It's a point of view.
Right.
Simple. I don't know why it's so fucking hard.
But right,
there's a pro-life organization. There's not. There's just the pro-life point of view. You fuckers have a pro-life point of view. You have a whole bunch of fucking organizations occasionally, usually churches, that adopt that, but it's not an organization of itself.
Right. but I suppose one of the differences is that there is no such thing in any place as an Antifa headquarters or an Antifa hierarchy at all, right? It doesn't exist. It's normally a bunch of leftists.
Chapter.
Yeah, there is no local chapter of Antifa. But and I also want to be clear, I don't 100% agree with everything these guys do. Do primarily agree with the fact that Antifa, as a rule, they're like, we only exist as long as there are fascists in our midst. When there are no more fascists, we have no reason to do anything, right? We'll go move on to something else, or our whole goal is fascists need to stop. And okay, that works. Whereas, every time one of these right-wing militias pops up, they're like, well, I'm against abortion. Okay, well, abortion just got banned. Well, I'm against the gays. I'm against, like, they're just going to keep on going. Why? Because it has nothing to do with the issues. It has everything to do with I'm angry and I want to hurt and kill people as an expression of power.
Well, and facing one's growing irrelevance. I mean, that's what this is all about at the end of the day. These are the death throes of the conservative mentality when it comes to almost every social topic. The longer time goes by, the more curmudgeonly, out of touch.
The thing is, we keep on relying on that.
Die off, and it gets harder and harder to convince more people to be among the ranks.
And that's true, but the problem is that the more we keep on relying on this whole, demographics are shifting, the world is shifting, and we keep on relying on that. And one thing, a couple of weeks ago for Oktoberfest, we talked about how the U.S. is not like Weimar Germany. But one thing lessons are still there to be learned from what happened. Weimar Germany was one of the most progressive regimes on earth before the fascists took over. And if you would ask someone in Weimar Germany, are we headed towards the left or the right? The majority of Germans in Weimar Germany would have said, "Hey, no, we're moving in a progressive direction." Until there was this conservative backlash, and you'd be amazed at how many people are bandwagon progressives who are just as easily jump onto bandwagon fascism. So this idea that we're just going to evolve naturally out of this fascist moment, I think, is hubris in the extreme.
Oh, I don't think it's like that. I just feel that we are seeing a group of people realize that none of the odds are in their favor, right? Like, we are going to get. I said this once at one of the city commission meetings here. Whether you like it or not, right wing, America is getting less churchy and browner every day.
But I mean, the problem is that
that's what they're freaked out about. Is that they're first of all, Christianity keeps dropping percentages on a global scale, and then the fact of religiosity at all is dropping in percentages of population.
But
and then
in terms of
are fucking more freely across race lines, and that's freaking these people out. And then we had a black president, really fucking freaked them out, and their own irrelevance, their own extinction of ideology is really driving a lot of what we see now in this huge lurch of national white racist paranoid theocratic fucking crazy.
But I mean, I think there's after Club Q though, and this is the reason that I brought this up. And I know we're like, for everyone watching, I know we're kind of being disjointed this evening. We're not really hitting good bullet points tonight. But the point that I really wanted to make with this is that we need to start paying attention to the fact that, like I said at the beginning, they're not hiding it anymore. Right. They are, and I know we sound like fearmongers sometimes, and I know we sound like God, here they go again. But when they're not even hiding it anymore, these guys are looking for war. They are looking for violence. They want to. They want, and this is one of the scary things about inviting white nationalists into your fold. What I see in this is an old school white nationalist trope that has been carried over and has now been mainstreamed. And the white nationalist trope was RAHOWA, racial holy war. And what they're looking for, what they've mainstreamed this as is, well, no, this is just part of the culture war, right? This is against gays. This is against, giving minorities more rights. Which, what more right? And no, they're not giving them more rights. They're saying you can't discriminate against these people in the same way that you are never discriminated against because, well, you're white Christians. I'm a white Christian. Unless it comes up about whether or not I'm evangelical or just, mainline Protestant like I am, I don't normally feel discriminated against. Now, do I get a little bit weirded out? Like if I'm going to go, like, say, rent an apartment and someone starts asking, so what church do you go to? Well, I go to, when I do go, I go to cathedral. Like, what's a uh-oh. Like, and you got to look at me like, shit, dude, are we going to have to go to court on this? Like, but that's not a question that comes up that often, right? And they're just
it's all part of that true color thing that we keep talking about them, and we wish that we could just see that met with, like we said before, fuck around and find out. Let them get the violence that they're looking for. I think that fucker in the club had a little fuck around and find out. Not enough, not quick enough, but I'm not going to criticize anybody that took him down. It just would have been cool if it happened differently, but it happened as best as it could at the time. Speaking of people that are trying to wield violence to their own benefit, David, before we crack open the next beer, let's talk about Russia real fast.
Okay. So this...
I try to hold him to a reasonable time limit tonight, so we're rolling down topics. And Russia... you had a thing that I had not heard about that I'm very interested to learn more about, especially the source of this information, because holy shit, I'm not surprised, much like the FIFA thing, but damn.
So I just want to quickly introduce this. So one thing about, again, talking about how these people think, the guy in the club, his dad, if you didn't hear the quote, when asked, questions about it. Well, at least he was so thankful that at the very least his son wasn't gay. This is how these people think. So back to the Russia.
But at least he's not gay. That's great,
right? So Newsweek did an article this week, and I'm surprised it didn't get more traction because now I'll grant you, Newsweek is not a news source that I normally lean on. I normally view that as a weak crutch.
That could be way worse though. Newsweek's fine.
It's fine. They tend to sensationalize just a little bit, and they're not my favorite. But they actually seem to, for once, do some decent investigative journalism. So they were asking, they were digging into FSB, and for those of you who don't know what FSB is, the Federal Security Bureau of Russia is basically their foreign intelligence unit, which seems to, in the course of this Ukraine war, more or less have left the reservation when it comes to Putin's Russia. They kissed his ass when he asked them to, and it led to this war because the FSB reported to Putin exactly what he wanted to hear, which was that the Ukrainians will greet us with open arms. But they were talking about, and apparently in some sort of background conversation with a former FSB agent who was still in contact with current FSB agents, because apparently they're in a mood to talk to foreign press these days because they're like, fuck it, it doesn't matter. The crackpot doesn't listen to us anyway. And there have been lots of communiques coming out about the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service being just like, we shit the bed. We shit the bed because we were told to shit the bed. And now we're being criticized for having shit the bed. So we're not happy, and we're going to therefore do whatever the fuck we want right now. And what are you going to do to stop us?
It's spilling the tea, apparently.
Yeah, which includes talking to apparently this Newsweek reporter, and what this emerged from was they were just doing background. He's like, "Oh yeah, well if it wasn't going to be Ukraine, it was going to be Japan."
Which just, I mean, you know.
Well, that's a thing. So apparently, this this Newsweek article goes into pretty deep detail, and they go into kind of deep background with a number of former and current FSB agents who were able to confirm to this Newsweek reporter, yeah, that's exactly right. So for those of you who don't know, during World War II, after the Russians had taken Eastern Germany and we'd taken Western Germany, and we were getting ready to do our little standoff dance, Russia turned around and decided that they were going to go to war with Japan and go grab some territory, hopefully, in the Eastern Pacific. So there were some islands that were definitely Japanese at the beginning of World War II. Not like conquered territory. They started out as Japanese. And the Russians were like, well, the Japanese are kind of busy. We'll go grab those. And they also tried to take part of northern China because at the time that it was occupied by the Japanese and claimed that as theirs. They ended up not doing that. But they did hold on to these islands in the Pacific. The Japanese call them the Ryukyu or Kiryukyu, and it's a little confusing. And the Russians call them the Kurils.
I've dropped the link to the Newsweek story in the comments just so that folks can follow along should they wish. And I mean, it's really just a mind-blowing notion. Like, first of all,
Right?
the idea on its face is like, treaty what? Because
Yeah, like you do.
you get the free pass of their nobody's coming to their defense very heavily.
But we have a mutual defense
Japan?
treaty with Japan.
Like, I mean, but at the bottom line, like to people can read the article. The bottom line is Russia looking for war.
They were, and the thing of it is apparently they preferred this war with Japan, and the reason was because they looked at it as earning them brownie points with the Chinese, because there's nothing the Chinese would love more than to embarrass the Japanese. And so they're like, oh, well, getting Japan to drop the claim to these islands, and from the Russian perspective, they're like, will Japan go full on war? Since this is contested territory, will Japan go full-on war to defend these islands? And will the U.S. look at a bunch of essentially useless rocks? I mean, it's not like there's oil reserves or anything underneath any of this, or natural gas reserves or anything else. The primary purpose of these islands is fish, right?
Don't you think, David, that at the end of the day, they're just looking for ways to fuck with United States sentiment? I mean,
I don't even
everything that Russia does is either Putin trying to measure his dick or Putin trying to fuck with the stability of the United States via discourse and media, right?
I think this paints a different picture, though.
Huh.
And this is why I think why it paints a different picture.
Like this comment makes a lot of sense. Like this whole thing is about drawing out the West.
Yeah, I think that's our perspective. Like we're looking at it being like you're trying to draw us into a fight. And I think that's part of it, but I don't think that's actually the main thrust. I think this reveals, that the main thrust was, holy shit, my domestic situation is weak. I am not in full control, and I need something to get my people behind, which is what Putin thought he was doing. And as many people have pointed, like a short victorious war is a great way to unite your country, right? So Putin thought, like with the Japanese, because the Japanese don't have a fully functional navy to defend these islands. They don't even have they don't even have the Japanese self-defense force doesn't even really have a true Marine Corps that they can rely upon. The closest major military power that could fuck with this would be the South Koreans. And are the South Koreans going to come defend Japanese islands?
Right.
That's a big question, Mark.
Well,
So
It's like he's a 90s sorority chick who wants to take down the rival prom queen candidate.
right, and that's our perspective. But the thing is, I think this paints a different perspective. I think
Yeah.
Putin is actually a lot weaker, and I think that this war in Ukraine is really kicking him down a bunch. The fact that he's had to embarrass himself by mobilizing, I don't think that we fully grasp how weak Putin has gotten
That maybe this is all an
inside the
effort to be a
country.
wartime president.
Yeah, it's starting to look like this is an effort to be a wartime president because, and
Find a way
that
to be a
brings
wartime president.
that brings to mind because if someone were to slap sanctions on let's say France, right? Which before the adoption of the WTO, I'll give an example. The Japanese and the French were in a trade war. And the thing is, for most French, with the exception of like some consumer electronics, and for the Japanese, it actually propelled their heavy equipment industry because the French were providing them with. For those of you, surprisingly, if you buy a lot of Caterpillar tractors in a large part of the world, those are made in France. Surprisingly. So, I mean, it propelled groups like now you see Mitsubishi backhoes and shit like that. And like more, like it kind of pushed that industry further in Japan. But neither country really super felt it. Like it hurt at the periphery, not at the direct level. From the reports that we're already hearing out of Russia, the sanctions that have been put on them have bit. A lot of people thought they would like the easy perspective is that they were going to hit immediately, and of course that was never going to happen. Right. That's not how economics works.
Right.
But they've hit sooner than I would have thought they would have.
I don't think I hate that.
They're seeming to hit sooner than I thought they would have. They had to start slamming into their bank reserves a lot faster than I think a more conservative economist or an economic outlook would have predicted. I think that they're in bad shape, and I think there's a lot of things that lead up to this in the background. For instance, Russia has been continually going through a low-scale or seemingly low-scale mortgage crisis for about like 6 years. Mm-hmm. Of people losing homes and being like, but I was paying on that home. I don't understand how are you foreclosing on a home that I was paying on? And Russian banking laws being like, well, we don't know. We need the house. We need to we need to resell the house, which makes me think that the Russians have been sitting there papering over a lot of other problems inside. And so why does Putin want a war? Putin wants a war to unite the country before some of these problems really begin to bite into the country due to economic mismanagement.
His rule.
But his rule has been to allow this economic mismanagement to further his political power. And so now he needs he needs a war to unite the country so that then he can get everyone to soldier on and accept the hardship of whatever economic mismanagement was coming.
Oh, well,
I think
wartime is hard.
Right.
Ollie G. Yeah.
And because like the classic example in the U.S. is always this. In 2008, did a lot of people foreclose on their mortgages? Yes. But that's not why a lot of those banks failed. A lot of those banks failed because you literally had people, and in some cases, at Morgan Stanley, this was especially true, and Morgan Stanley couldn't weather it. You had guys rolling down the halls with carts being like, what's got a loss? What's got a loss? Put it on the cart. It's now part of the mortgage crisis. What's you in your office? What do you have that we're currently underwater on? Put it on the cart. We're going to call it part of the mortgage crisis. Mm-hmm. And you had them rolling down, like these carts were literally rolling down the hallways, stacking up bad loans. And I have a feeling that the Russians have been doing a lot of bad investments on the back end and trying to prop it up with oil sales and trying to paper over it. The Venezuelan government has done the same thing, right? The Venezuelan government made a shit ton of bad economic decisions and then tried to blame everything on dropping oil prices because they were using the value of Venezuelan oil to protect the rest of the economy from the ramifications of these bad investments. Even before the price of oil dropped the last time, right? You still had apartment buildings and office towers that were being built in Caracas that weren't completed, right? Like the workers had left. All you had was the shell of a building that people had abandoned because the bank figured out, oh shit, this is a bad investment. We've lost, 5 billion boliviars, or whatever the currency was at that time. And it starts to suggest that what our ability to continue to do what we're doing in Ukraine is weakening Russia that much further. I mean, the fact that no one was actually paying for their military in the first place has been made evident. It's beginning. I think we're looking. It isn't just that we're seeing a paper tiger in Russia, in Ukraine. I think we're seeing the true death of an empire, and an empire that is in truth already hollowed out.
Those that know
and
me
was
know
looking
that
for.
I don't give a fuck because fuck Russia, fuck Putin, I don't give a fuck. Carve it up into 8 more fucking countries. I don't give a fuck. I have no fucks.
As long as the Chinese don't get Siberia, we're good.
Not to whiskey dick your ongoing throbbing international/economic boner, but it's time.
Right? For those of you who don't know, I really love the international stuff. It's fun.
So shut the fuck up and drink a beer. It's time for another round.
All right, you start.
Like, I gotta get us to a beer break.
I know. I'm sorry.
About economics now. Jesus fuck.
I know, right? It's
So you start us out. I'm actually because of last time and everyone wanted to see the color. I'm going to go clear out this Stein real fast. So you start us out again, and I will be right back.
Coolness. Well, I'm going with one of my favorites, as everyone knows. I am cracking open for the first time. I haven't tried it yet. I got it yesterday. The Dragon's Milk Brewers Select. So everybody knows that Dragon's Milk is my favorite beer. If you don't, you do now. One of the reasons that I can say that, I tell people a third of the reason I moved to Michigan was craft beer, or I'll say Dragon's Milk specifically. So right now, and this is going to be partially obscured probably, but I'm going to throw this graphic up just because I like to talk about what's going on with my favorite brew. So, oh no, it fits right in. So Barrel Bash is happening for one more day. So if you're into barrel aged, etc., now's a great time to get to New Holland if you're in the area of Grand Rapids or Holland. So they've got a bunch of stuff that's being released, and the thing that happened on Black Friday was the release of this Dragon's Milk Brewers Select, and it is in a typical Dragon's Milk Reserve label. It's a silver label, which is it's been a minute since there was a silver. It's a 14%er, which is different than what you'll see on Untapped. They say 12, but it turned out that information was not necessarily correct, and it's actually 14.3 in the bottle. Brewer Select is a batch of Dragon's Milk created using barrels hand-picked direct from distilleries by our brewers. The barrels chosen are the ones that retained more than usual barrel character and carry that forward into the beer. This variation is a special treat for bourbon lovers and those looking for more flavor in their beer. Well, years ago, I stumbled into Dragon's Milk by way of a flight at New Holland Pub in Holland. So I can't wait to try this. I've been looking forward to tonight to be able to try it. So let's get in here. It burns. It burns so gloriously. So here's what I can say. It definitely, like, if you drank it, you'd say, okay, that's normal dragon's milk. Like, does not have any flavors, and it's not like as boozy as triple mash, though it's climbing toward triple mash is 17%, so it's climbing toward triple mash. I'm using that bang, but it's definitely living up to that character thing in that position. I think this might be the most flavor character barrel age glory that I can say I can see without. Like, this is a really good happy medium because triple mash is definitely very much a booze forward beer experience, where this one is a little more moderated, but you can definitely tell you're into something a little more special than the average dragon's milk. So loving it, digging it, of course. It was a short trip for me, of course, but being my favorite beer. So loving that. Very good, very tasty. David, what are you bringing to us?
So I'm bringing Mystical Jack, which when I was at Reds, my favorite place on earth, even they were like, "Yeah, I saw this and I was curious. What are you calling a traditional ale?" And I'm like, "Okay, let's go find out what this is." So what I'm getting from this is so a few episodes back I did a Spelt Belgian, which, for those who don't know what Spelt is kind of like the cast off from a lot of wheat, and they normally not used in beer. So I'm getting like a lot of maltiness. This is almost, I would almost call this like almost like a very heavy Marzen. This is what this tastes like. It's got a definite citrus note. But it's got a little bit of a watery front end, and then it does a big malt note in the back. But with a definite lemon twist to it is what I would call it. It would definitely be a mowing the lawn. Like it's not so citrusy that it would be like hot. I would call this Michigan summer, not Tennessee summer.
You know, that's what I would have said before I lived here, but there are a couple of weeks.
A whole 2 weeks. Oh, sing me the song of your people.
I know.
There was a reason why I was so pissed off at being sent to
Apparently, the song
Orlando.
of my people is now any given flip a coin between either Michigan University that play games this weekend. So no, I see what you're saying, though.
No, like not yeah. There was a reason I was so pissed off. They sent me to Orlando for my training because I'm like, it's 9 months of 100 degrees and 100% humidity. I get 4 months, 4 goddamn months of not sweating off like at least a fifth of my body weight from working during the day, and you've taken at least 2 weeks of that away from me, and therefore I dislike you very much for that. This would definitely be, a lot of people throw around the term session beer a lot, and I don't like that they do it. Because what they mean is you're going to drink like 6 of these and not feel it. And you will feel this because it's 7% alcohol. This would be like a session beer for me, not for civilians.
For someone with a liver that's mostly scar tissue.
It's really super easy drinking. I mean, I'm probably just going to pound this back. But it's
some serious hop presence, but well balanced with a robust caramel malt. Does that check out?
And I might be jaded about the hop presence.
Mm-hmm.
in ales, you expect more hop. Lagers, you normally expect more malt, more sort of mild flavors. Maybe you can go a little wild every now and then. I have a couple of malt lager recipes in my category where I'm like, oh, okay, hey, we've done something with this. Is there hop? Yes. Is it an IPA? No. Is it even on the level of a pale? No. This
You would
is
say the balance is not balanced for you.
I mean, it's super balanced. I think that's the point.
Oh.
Is it's supremely balanced. That really, if I had to pick a terminology for this of what's kind of throwing me with this, is it's not standing out in either hop or malt for me. It's
So the balance
going
is making it less remarkable than you thought it might.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but the irony is it's remarkable in its unremarkableness. That's what's kind of making it interesting to me. Is it's so balanced. It's like the guy in the train station wearing the fedora and the beige trench coat, and you're like, this man seems supremely unremarkable, and he's so unremarkable that I'm remarking on it.
Right. Well, it does
Right?
come in a little bit lower rating. The drinker rating, user rating, whatever you want to call that on.
I understand
1.18.
why. I understand why, because I don't think that many people expect this much malt
Dragon
out of an ale.
0.27.
Yeah, I know. I would rate this. So here's the thing: if I first of all, I very rarely rate a beer lowly unless it's absolutely awful. Every beer has its place and a purpose.
Yeah, you're more generous than I am. I
am.
I also had that period of time where I rated IPAs low because I didn't like them, and I really skewed my ratings. I'm going to spend years making up for that. But no, I see what you're saying.
No, I mean it's every beer has its place in like seasons and food pairings and everything else. In the same way that I like I'll rate like jug wine for shit because it tastes like shit. This doesn't taste like shit. This has a flavor profile that suits a thing. I would definitely sit down and drink like 4 or 5 of these if it was put in front of me. Like it's like especially on a hot day. On a hot day, this would be fucking good.
Well, speaking of hometown stuff for me, I'm going to continue slurping on this dragon's milk while we talk about the week of meetups that I experienced. So David knows about one of these. David knows about one of these.
What you drag me into, but
We'll get
casually.
to that. So Tuesday, I went over to enjoy Fairbanks night at New Holland's Knickerbocker down the street from the house here, because I get my mug club discounts, and I treated a couple of rounds for a local board member of a neighborhood association across town here, Ned Andre, great dude. So shout out to Ned. I've been getting a gradual education on Grand Rapids background and sociopolitical things at a local level. And there could be a whole show of what he and I talked about, so I'm going to leave the specifics out. But I've been really gratified to be able to talk to and learn from some people that have been at this for a hot minute here. So then the next day, Wednesday, I did a thing, and David's salty because I pointed out the reason that I broke out the recorder. So if you saw last week on this show or on the city commission meeting, I looked straight at the camera and called out our newly elected commissioner here in the First Ward in Grand Rapids, Drew Robbins, who everybody has been very aware by watching the show that I've had it out for, and then anybody locally would have seen me very actively trashing the shit out of him on social media any chance I get.
Oh yeah,
Because he was in lockstep with a parallel campaign of dirty money, dark, dirty money, that was lying about the representation of crime stats and really coming after the incumbent, who is somebody that I've come to know and respect and really felt represented by, Kurt Repart. So after all of my noise making, all of my shit flinging, and all of my fit throwing, I get an email from Drew asking if we could go meet up for a happy hour. And I was like, wow, okay. And I will say this honestly, because this is really who I am. It doesn't matter. Okay, I wouldn't take a meeting with Trump, but it doesn't matter how much I might hate your guts politically.
I'm not allowed for fear of federal prosecution for saying what I would do at a meeting with Trump.
Also that. I'm very much willing to
I volunteer as tribute.
To people that I can't fucking stand politically. And what's funny, David, is the Tuesday to Wednesday journey was a journey, because after I got done talking with Ned, I hung around, finished my beer, and I ended up at closing and talking to some other Mug Club members, Fairbanks members that I know. And then a couple people that they were with, they were very drunk. These people were like teetering on the stool drunk. And,
My tribe.
Something came up about politics or something, and I mentioned our show, and I said, we discussed beer and politics. They said, what kind of politics? I said, left-leaning politics. And they said, so how would you describe yourself? I would say left. It changes depending on the topic. So we got into a discussion. I realized that I was talking to two people that were very religiously centered. I don't know if I'd say very religious, but she kept talking to me about Jesus. She said, what do you think about Jesus? I said, he's probably the greatest hippie who ever lived. She was like, hippie? Oh, that's weird. And I'm like, yeah, hippie. He's the greatest hippie that ever lived. A very fascinating historic figure. She really couldn't compute that. Like the fact that I reduced Jesus to a hippie and a fascinating historic figure, and I took no theology at it at all. And then the dude kept trying to shut her up because she was like super, like I said, just like orbit teeter on the bench kind of.
Yep.
He was being a little more purposeful, but I got down to I think the nuts and bolts here, David, were that I was talking to an inebriated Christian Amway employed libertarian. No. Don't go off the rails yet. Amway employed libertarian couple. So I had like a quadfecta of people that we're definitely not going to end up on the same page. But we had some discussion. So then I went into Wednesday.
That's like hitting like 4 cherries in a goddamn.
It's conservative bingo in Grand Rapids if you can land on drunk, religious, Amway employed libertarian. They definitely weren't in a condition, and I didn't lay it on them how much I consider libertarian to be just a light version of Republican. But I did make a lot of like little tiny jabs, like, well, yeah, I mean, you guys don't like being taxed for anything because you don't believe in doing anything that benefits your fellow man. And he's like, I don't know about that. And like we had some, and then there was something about socialism. I said, I mean, we all do socialism every day. And she was like, how do we do socialism every day? And I'm like, traffic light. I mean, we all pay for it, and we all expect it to help govern our common needs. Anyway, so Wednesday comes along, and I go do the sit down with Drew Robbins. And here's what I'm going to say. And I mean this wholeheartedly. I told Drew that I respected his offer to come and talk. And I still respect that. We sat for an hour and a half at the relatively new tap house that's down the street called the Kusterer Brew House. And it is named for one of the original brewers in Grand Rapids. So it's got a beer history to it, and it's a very Belgian-style brew house. It's got every soccer scarf you could imagine thrown over the rafters, lots of international flags. It's a really fucking cool place. They've done an incredible job on it. Yes, you're gonna definitely see it whenever you get your ass up here, and you're gonna love it. So I even bought a couple of pints for this political enemy of mine. when I originally showed David this email and said, "Look who asked me for a sit down,"
Like, it's a trap. It's a trap. I want to
David-
clarify.
David goes red flag. He's like, he goes full Akbar. It's a trap.
I do. I want to point out, like, at least if this was held in Tennessee, you would have searched the other guy for weapons first. I mean, because that's literally been a problem about, people killing each other. There's a couple of famous cases about that in Tennessee. Yes, I went
David.
full-
David, when I told him, it's a trap.
It was. I mean, like, because literally, this has happened in a lot of. Like, it's a trap. It's bad. It's bad news.
And
you're
this
being
is an OG 1982 copyright Admiral Akbar. So, given that, I told Drew when we sat down, I said, I'm going to record this. And I'm going to record it because not just one, a couple of people were very much on the train of, for everybody's conversational safety, you should record the meeting. So I did record the meeting. He reacted well to that idea. He didn't freak out. And here's what I'm going to say about Drew Robbins. I made it clear in no uncertain terms that there was a problem. There was a huge baggage problem, that he's coming into office with everyone knowing that he benefited from a dark money campaign of slander or defamation against our city and the sitting commissioner that he beat. But here's what I'm going to say for Drew. He educated me a little bit on how he won. He explained that he knocked on a lot of doors and educated a lot of people on the fact that they even have a commissioner. So at the end of the day, the ignorance of how the system works played in his favor because he was the first government person to ever fucking talk to some of these people. And it just harkens back to the ignorance factor for me, that people don't understand, they don't get curious, they don't bother to know. And then the other factor, David, and this is very interesting, typical electoral strategy. This, as I understand it, was the first Grand Rapids Commission meeting that fell at the same time as a midterm. In the past, Grand Rapids was on an odd year cycle. And recently, things were readjusted to drop with the major elections. It's much more economical, and a lot more people turn out. It turns out my man Kurt may have been playing by the old school rules, knocking on the doors of the known voters. And Drew may have actually gotten the edge by knocking on the doors of just whoever the fuck. So it's not so much that people necessarily preferred Drew's agenda. It's that he's the one that they happen to talk to and the name that they knew when they went to the polls. Now, he and I have talked about issues. He's also pledged to answer like a 20-question list that I collected from other activists. And you laugh because I bet you're laughing because you think he won't do it.
No, it's because you gave him a 20-question list. Again, I'm used to Tennessee politics where it's basically like, did you donate to my campaign? No, I did everything I could do to make sure that you would never see elected office ever.
Right.
Also, possibly, I might have, tried to rally a mob to drive you and your family from the city, as is custom.
So you're saying basically the idea that we can entertain a 20 question list is unheard of for back home.
Right, right. I mean,
here's
you
the thing.
know how Nashville politics works. It's
The man agreed with me, or the man agreed to me on a recording that he would answer questions that I've gathered from the community and from the activists. And I'm very excited to see how this conversation proceeds. And here's the most interesting thing, David. And of course, you knew that I was going to go here. If you ever searched your soul and thought about the
oh
things
Jesus
you know in life.
Christ! Oh no! Oh no!
You ready?
Oh, no.
You ready for what this does?
Just do it.
You're
Just
going to
do
laugh,
it.
David.
Oh God.
This means that a commissioner who is a commissioner-elect, who was a commissioner in the grand scheme of the universe in Neil deGrasse Tyson terms for 5.5 minutes, agreed to sit with me for an hour and a half, which means that he has put in 1 hour and 10 minutes more time than Commissioner John O'Connor, with whom I have a feud with over his lack of response. So,
I mean, I would say that your feud with
guy and current guy that's getting pushed out by him have spent more time paying attention to the conversation with a constituent than the motherfucker that will not sit down and make shit right.
I would say that the fact that you've made so much trouble for O'Connor is probably a lesson to Drew about how much of an asshole you can be. I mean, God knows that. I mean, here's the thing: you're in a city a third the size of Nashville,
Right.
and already
I busted through the wall like the same hulked out Kool-Aid man that I
right,
would
right. Because here's the thing: in a city of 2 million people, there's hardly a councilman. A city of 2 million people with a shit ton more councilors
It would
in
actually
Grand
be
Rapids.
A city of
There's
700,000. You don't get to count Greater Nashville. Just count Nashville. 700,000 people versus 200 and change.
Right.
And
There's
every one of 40 people in the council in the
Nashville Council knows who Lucas
knew
is.
who I was. Because of dude, at the last commission meeting here, they started, like, a couple of groups showed up and handed out papers to all of the commissioners, and I leaned over to the person next to me. He's like, "We can do that? Oh fuck, we can do that? Oh my god, it's on!" I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know you could do that here. That used to be my shtick in Nashville. I wouldn't go to a lot of the meetings. I would just design propaganda, print 40 copies of it, and bring it to the clerk because they were required. If you put your name and phone number and address at the bottom, they were required to put it on every commissioner's desk. I didn't have to speak. I could let the paperwork speak for me.
You mean councilman?
Yeah, whatever. Councilman, commissioner. I get it all mixed up now that I'm here. Anyway, it's just been an interesting week, and I'm looking forward to more of this. And what I'm finding to be really fascinating here is that I think there's a fundamental intellect that, at least in the politically involved people, not necessarily the general population, because this is the same state where they thought they could, sail the governor out in the middle of the fucking lake and sink her. So in the population,
in Tennessee, we can only fantasize.
Actually, I think if you threw Bill Lee in the Cumberland River, it would be like the Joker. He would just like absorb all the toxic shit and then come out with like pale skin and actually be a villain. So
what? Now I was going to throw him in Percy Priest.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's a superhuman conservative. You'd find
Also,
him down there with a cabin that was flooded when the lake was formed. He'd have like a fire underwater and shit. Like
no, that's real foot.
So, basically, it's interesting because it feels like I don't know if this is a product of the times that we're in.
Oh, by the way, have I told you just recently, because it brings it up, it came up, and so it's really funny. There's a dental insurance service now in Nashville that has their advertisement is just like a randomly attributed quote of, "I'd rather go jump in the Cumberland than go to the dentist."
It's saying the Grand River ain't perfect, but it's not the Cumberland.
It's not the Cumberland.
That's a nice change. That's a nice upgrade in life.
The only reason it doesn't catch on fire is it's like that episode where they're trying to figure out why Mr. Burns hasn't died, and they're showing like all the different diseases, and none of them can figure out which one is going to kill him. Right. The only reason the Cumberland doesn't catch on fire is you can't all the chemicals that are in it can't figure out which one is supposed to catch fire.
So I'm going to close this by saying that it's interesting to see as much theatrics and prop use and over-the-top rhetoric. I mean, I'm going to be the first one to admit that when I called Drew out and pointed right at the camera lens, I channeled my Hulk Hogan and said, "It's on you, brother," and all that. And there's a lot of that is political theatrics, and it's interesting to see that the people here seem to understand. At least the politically active people that I've talked to seem to understand there are different versions. There's the hardcover, the soft cover, the audiobook. There's all these different versions of me in different arenas, and it's been fun to play with that. And at the end of the day, I didn't even tell you, the mayor agreed to have coffee with me in January at some point. So it's interesting how many people are still willing to have discussions, and that's not, like you said about the South, it's not what I'm used to. In Nashville, with the exception of John O'Connor, he's playing like I would expect a conservative in the South.
Yeah, I mean, in Nashville, it's
saying, "Yeah, you said bad shit, and I didn't agree with it."
But again, something that people don't understand about elections in the South: there are always three options to any election: win, lose, or hanging.
Well, on that note, let's talk about an issue that's important in local politics in both of these places, and that would be Jesus fucking Christ. How does anybody afford to live anywhere?
So I sent Lucas. I want to preface why are we talking about this? So I sent Lucas this Atlantic article that just blew my mind. And again, for those of you who watch the show, you might have noticed I like economic stuff. I like it, right? I like it. I like economic stuff. I like numbers and making numbers balance and figuring out how to make people's lives better through numbers. It's
He likes numbers a little too much.
I do.
Like if there's any lady out there that's crushing on David when they watch our show and just thinking, boy, if I could only find a way to talk to this guy, I assure you that if you just go get like a temporary tattoo transfer paper and put some like, market data on it and then wet that shit down and stick it to your thighs and just walk up to David with a good old-fashioned cabaret spread, it's over. You're good.
Yeah,
He might not get around to the business because he might be too busy reading the charts, but this man loves some numbers.
no, I can multitask. It's good.
Now I'm thinking about Robin Williams' routine where he did the thing with the over here like reading data.
Yeah. Eyes can move. That's Marxist. That's Marxist formula for surplus labor. Oh,
So tell the people why
I'm
you labeled
intrigued.
this an intentional housing crisis, because I
So-
think your reasons are going to be data-based and mine are going to be cynical.
So basically, this Atlantic article did this wonderful job of showing how if New York, LA, most major metropolitan areas had simply kept their housing rules in place from the 1980s, how we'd have $2 trillion more in GDP from 1990 on than currently. And what they explained was this. So by making housing regulations more strict in terms of where you can build housing, not the quality of housing, but where you can build housing and what housing you can build in those places, which mainly means multifamily units, apartment buildings, row houses, etc., that we would be far better off right now. If New York had not pulled back its housing restriction, or increased rather its housing restrictions, pulled back its development, how many more people would be living in New York right now? Simply because, why would they be moving to New York? Because there's economic opportunity there, right? And by curtailing affordable housing, they curtailed economic opportunity. So why would people curtail economic opportunity? Well, the article goes into a couple of different... The article doesn't really theorize. I have a really good theory.
If you reduce the opportunity for some, you increase the opportunity for the top.
A little, but how? How? And it's one of my big peeves about inflation and everything else that we're seeing in the market today is this this idea of leverage, right? So much of American economic activity is based upon debt. That's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Governments having debt, businesses having debt is not necessarily a bad thing.
But it is a little dirty. I mean,
it's not really. No, it's actually
it feels real nasty. It feels like that one friend that you really like to hang out with, but you know they raw dog everybody. You're like, I like you kind of, but
What are you saying?
that thing. Ladies. I'm just gonna pull the parachute. Ladies. I mean, look,
No,
it feels gross to base an economy on debt.
No,
in
see,
the ways that we do. It just
well,
seems
no, I
so
mean, to me, from the economic side, I'm like, okay, debt, not a big deal. Debt is it's not a problem. Debt puts more money into the economy. Debt makes things happen. You can't, my
So
classic
you're right-wing
example.
and you selectively decide to give a shit about debt and grandstand on it every time we come to a budget debate.
Well, I mean, like for instance, like one of my classic examples of classic Americana, the saloon. The saloon would not exist without debt. Why? Because for any of you who've wondered how, and this is, I've made this point to Lucas many times about breweries.
You might say we stretch for our analogies here, but we don't stretch too far because it's a saloon that we're discussing now to make this.
Right. No, I mean, like the classic Americana of the Western Saloon. How would Hans getting off the damn boat from Hamburg afford a place in, I don't know, Deadwood, Dakota, with a waist to ceiling mirror that stretched across an entire wall with gold leaf?
I mean, it's a
and
fair point.
put in a bar and put in chairs and have glassware. And how did he do that? Well, the answer is the brewery had a guy on the dock, and he saw Hans, and he said, "Hans, have I got a deal for you?" And now Hans is a saloon owner in Deadwood,
Yeah,
North
right.
Dakota, right? Debt is, and but Hans owns on the loan. Hans has to pay back on the loan, and Hans has certain conditions on the loan, like only buying from the brewery that loaned him the money to set up that saloon. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. Debt does propel economic growth.
And I'm not going to say debt's just universally, automatically bad. It's just it feels kind of nasty.
But-
in the interest of time, David, be sure
well,
to tell
I-
the intentionality of this housing.
Yeah,
crisis.
so I'm coming back to it. So it's the leverage point, right? So how do you borrow against something? Well, you need to have something of value
Right.
that the bank can take from you if you don't repay on the loan. And which is going to lead us to our final topic, which is going to be so much fun. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. Oh God, it's going to.
David's camera's going to start flipping any minute now. His hate boner is already touching the desk.
Oh God, it's so it's so much fun.
So let's take this one home for people so we can jump into that
so
train.
the problem is, why do we have this intentional housing crisis? Why can't I afford a house? Why can't Lucas afford to buy a house? Why can't so many of us afford to buy a house?
Now, to be fair, your market is way more fucked up than mine.
Yeah, it is.
We at least
But
have a snowball's chance in hell here of being able to get into that homeowner thing, which is one of the reasons we moved. I've told a lot of people, like, we moved, why the hell did you move to Michigan? Well, one thing is, in Nashville, you can't save money.
No, you can't.
In Grand
But
Rapids, we can actually save. Now, inflation's
And
taken a little dent out of that, but, like, here, we can actually set aside
Yeah.
money.
and I finally have a job where
Based on the fucking... whatever that thing is, the dog.
I mean, it's taken me to be. It's taken me until 38 to find a job where I can save money. Right.
Right.
I mean, it's insane.
Now he has to deal with his buddy Lucas saying, "Yeah, so when are you getting vacation times? You can come to Michigan drink."
Yeah, exactly. Now, if I come up there,
at the Great Lakes with me.
if I come up there, it's probably not going to be the vacation. It's probably going to be buy a house. Because goddamn Nashville.
Yeah, really.
But so why do we have this intentional housing crisis? Well, the answer is because if I'm an institutional investor and I need leverage to borrow more money, I need collateral. I need something I can borrow against. Right? And one of the things that people don't understand is when you're an institutional group, you can actually owe money on something and then borrow against it again. And the last time most homeowners understood this was in the 90s, right? Where you'd have a mortgage and then you'd go refinance that mortgage, right? Now, what was the purpose of that refinance? The purpose of the refinance was we're going to pay off your existing mortgage and then give you more money, right? To pay back, just like your mortgage, but now you've gotten and whenever anyone says the equity in your house, right? What they're talking about is you borrowing against the improved value
your ability to take on additional debt on top of debt.
Exactly. So
and Olivia points out, I did that last year. Like,
Yeah.
there are legitimate opportunities and reasons to do this sort of thing. I mean, it's
yeah,
not universally negative.
and Olivia, please don't tell me you took an APR. Please tell me you took a fixed.
Oof. You can just keep it to yourself. It's okay if you wanna air that.
don't ever take APR. Don't ever take an adjustable rate. Always take a fixed. But so what? Why is this an intentional housing crisis? Well, the reason is because of this. If we don't build enough housing, then the value of the housing continues to rise, doesn't it? And if the value continues to rise, then I can borrow more against it, can't I? Yep. So why is Blackstone, the world's largest investment group, continually going out there and buying existing plots of housing? Why are we not building enough housing to continue to house everyone, right? Because if we were housing everyone, if the market was truly free, then there would be a builder out there someplace, there'd be a developer out there someplace being like, well, someone's gonna buy this. I mean, the mortgage rates are, especially in the 90s and early aughts, being like, the mortgage rate is essentially zero. So why wouldn't I do this?
When David sent me this topic, something I pointed out to him is this overlaps in a really squicky kind of way with the sheer volume of politicians, especially local politicians, who are in the real estate game. It's always felt dirty, but it gets super dirty when you start thinking about the deets, right? Yeah. So if you look at my situation with my aforementioned feud with John O'Connor here in Grand Rapids, he's been in the real estate game for a hot minute. So why wouldn't John O'Connor want to make a definitive statement about the police and the power structure and abuse? Well, it kind of runs counter to his ability to gentrify and profit off of all this shit. And
bingo!
When you get down to housing policy, why in the fuck would local leaders want enough housing if the value of their own interest is increasing by a housing shortage?
Exactly.
And that leads me to, because I'm a real heavy-handed top-down federal kind of guy, that leads me straight into federal regulation and laws like you can't be in government if you have real estate interests.
Oh, no. And to me, it leads me to the Henry. I know this gets kind of complex, and I apologize. If any of you all have ever heard my Henry VII argument, that the federal government should be involved in building housing for people.
I expected to have to deploy the time machine, so I'm interested in the fact that you didn't go there. But okay, all right, cool. So
I did not go into the whole Henry VII and feudal tithes system. I didn't do that. See,
this is not a problem.
I can evolve.
There's nothing that comes out of this conversation that consists of, hey, what can we do about it? Let's do this tomorrow. No, this is a long slog problem with a long slog solution, right?
No. I'm going to argue the opposite. This is actually an easy. This is actually an easy fix solution.
What's the
fix? It is the easy fix solution is, hey, do we have do you have a plot of land? Okay. We, the federal government, again, the Henry VII solution, we, the federal government, will buy that land, we will develop that land, and we will build housing on that land with federal contractors, and then we will sell that land for a very modest profit. We will sell the houses, not rent them. We will sell the houses. If you have an apartment building, we will sell the apartment building to the tenants with a covenant, right? That runs with the building.
Boy, you're going to cause the right wing to come sling every ism at you they can come up with. Everything that they learned.
How the hell is that? Here's the thing. That is not
communism, socialism, Marxism, and whatever other ism.
I just said sell.
Again, for those of you who don't understand, I'm a social democrat, which means that I believe that market economics work when government keeps it straight.
That's fair.
Right? When government David, keeps it straight.
I think there's a huge crock pot of chili downstairs that really wants my attention, and I'm definitely drunk enough to eat some of it. So we're going to jump in to this next one.
We have one last one.
Because I know that boner, that hate boner is just ready. and so we're getting to send David off in style. So close out the housing thing because it's time for David's favorite topic.
Oh my God!
So what's your last thought on housing? Because you were
Musk
saying
is-
one more thing.
No, no. That was. I thought we were
you're
moving on
ready.
to the.
You're ready.
Yes, I'm ready to. I'm ready to release the hate boner.
All right.
I'm ready. I'm ready to release the hate boner.
Everybody duck, because here comes the throbbing purple hate boner that most of you know as the boner alert. It's time for David to talk about his favorite guy.
I really love. I want to point out. I really love that Lucas. He was like, "Oh, you ragging him unnecessarily," and that now like he's gradually come around to being like, "Oh God, this man is a
Let me
monster."
Share something with you. I don't know if this is being watched or will be watched by a mutual acquaintance of mine. I would consider him a mutual friend, and I'm gonna use his name. He'll tell me if I'm overstepping, but my friend Jonathan Topher. We've talked about Musk quite a bit because he was a big fan for quite a while, and here's something that I mentioned to him.
You need to tag him on this video and be like,
I know, right?
How's it feel now? How's it feel, Topher? How's it feel?
No. So let me. I gotta find it. I don't remember. The point is that fans, Elon Musk fans, are starting to have to question what the fuck is going on with this guy. And I pointed something out to we were just bantering back and forth. And what I said was what I wanted to quote, but now I can't figure it out. But I pointed out, like, the guy has made everybody look at him like, what the hell? Testing even the most gracious fans' patience. And at this point, it's like all of the negatives and the risks of Elon Musk have been laid very much bare in public.
I'm not a prophet. I'm just observant.
So this slow motion train wreck of Twitter. First of all, I didn't find that much social value in Twitter to begin with. A lot of people are talking about how this is going to disenfranchise Black Twitter. Like, okay, but can't Black Reddit just be a thing? I mean, I don't understand why Twitter is the only place where we can have unrepresented groups of people be represented in the discourse. Fuck it. Like the idea that Twitter is the home of anything irreplaceable.
At least Condé
work
Nast.
for me.
At least Condé Nast knows not to fuck with their cash cow over at Reddit. I mean that at least I'll give Condé Nast that. And for those of you who don't know, Condé Nast is a major publisher who owns Reddit.
And it's pretty much left to be, for better or worse, a little bit Wild West. But it's truly Reddit. I'm not even a big Reddit user. I was a lurker until we moved, and I realized a great way to learn about my city is to join the subreddit for my city.
Right?
But like, I'm still very casual. Like I used Reddit for political purposes during the campaign here in the midterm. But I don't go check Reddit. I don't give a fuck, typically. But here's what I would say. Twitter does not strike me as a global public square as much as Reddit does.
No. Oh, shit. Get my camera straight.
Now it's time for Drunk Cam with David.
Well, sorry. I knocked my arm.
It's okay. We understand. Shit happens.
I'm dealing with the very best of Korean discount products over here, okay?
Earlier, when David and I were getting set up for the show, I joked with him. I said it was like he was rescuing his camera from like a roommate that had passed out. Like, you okay? Wake up! You okay? putting it up like it looked like he got it off the floor.
I so didn't get it off the floor. That definitely was not what happened.
It's okay. We
not
understand.
at all.
If you're surfing porn, you just want that camera to get away from you, just in case. We get it.
Oh no, no, I'm not going to go into that comment. Other than the fact that apparently now, whenever I load Chrome, so I have two monitors. So one one monitor has Chrome on it all the time. The other monitor has all everything that I'm working on all the time. And so whenever I log off the show, I turn the camera down and go about my daily business. But I was walking by the other day, and I guess it opened Chrome again. I had to do a restart, and Chrome had automatically loaded StreamYard, which is where we broadcast from. And I suddenly realized that the camera was on the entire time.
Well, and it should be noted that you have the little doohickey that puts your camera in the middle of your screen, so you can't otherwise use your screen when we're not doing the show without a camera.
Right.
Anyway. You do have a reason to use that. My camera just sits in one place all the fucking time.
Yeah, so because if I put my camera like on the top of my television, we've tried this multiple ways. Again, this is why I have the very best in South Korean.
And I've been wanting to do the same thing. I just haven't messed with it.
But anyway, back to the point.
There's a slow motion train wreck playing out at Twitter,
and I love
those of us that were already on this wave.
But here's what I love about this entire story, which is that we are on the cusp. We are at the beginning. As everyone always likes to use the Churchill quote, we aren't at the end, we're at the beginning of the end, or the end of the beginning of Musk.
Now, a lot of people think that he's bulletproof, and this is nothing. He's just going to sell it off when it fails.
But he can't, because the problem is that he leveraged. Again, this is going back to our little earlier conversation about leverage and collateral. Which is he held his Tesla shares as collateral for the $13 billion in loans that he took to buy this thing. Also, if I'm the Saudis, then we have to be honest about what the Saudis are in this for, which is shadow banking. They're hoping to use. I would argue that if the Saudis are looking around for something, they're hoping to use Twitter and the way that the Huawei system and other covert systems of banking work. Which, if you aren't familiar with that, East Asian societies use this very frequently, which is you go to a trusted individual. Let's say in America, right? Like you want to send money back to, let's say, Shanghai, China, right? So you go to a trusted individual who is part of the network, and you deliver $5,000 to that individual. That individual then sends a message back to a lender in Shanghai that says, okay, I have $5,000 in hand, lend this person $3,000. And I will, through various other means, get you the money to cover your $3,000 loss. I'll take $1,000, you'll take $1,000, we'll all be okay. So that, everyone gets, the lender in Shanghai lends the money, and both sides get $1,000. It's a complex system. It normally involves a lot of coded numbers to ensure transactions, etc. And if I were the Saudis, and again, Islamic law forbids interest, but it does allow for the charging of fees. Right, Twitter is a great tool for being like, I'm gonna use Twitter to give you, $5,000, and then this person in Riyadh gets $3,000, etc. It's great for that sort of system. For $44 billion, it's pretty fucking overpriced for that. But I can see where the Saudis were interested. In that sort of method.
Do you think that
for the $13 billion,
any way out of this for him to cover his ass, or is
no, he's fucked. He's absolutely, completely, 100%, 1000% fucked. Because here's what he did: was when you walk into a corporate situation that has an existing framework, that has an existing model, the last thing that you want to do is go through with a scythe unless you have something to replace it with.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, and begging
Musk-
people to come and work is clearly no replacement.
No, that was the ultimate sign of weakness. And now you've got even the people who beg to come back to work. And I shared with you the tweets that I'm seeing in other places. Even people who came back to work, he's turning around and trying to renege on his severance agreement.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they can afford all the severance that they're on the hook for now. And I don't know what the law is about that, but there's no way these people are getting their money anytime soon.
No. Well, I mean, they'll get their money because the bank has a credit line with Twitter. Probably has a very generous credit line, right? So when Musk bought Twitter, he would have bought the credit line as well. And so the credit line, but again, so much of this, and I've argued this for years, Uber, Twitter, Facebook, all these big tech companies exist on word of mouth and fashion buying.
Right.
Right? Why do you want to? Oh, because an example, why do you want to invest in Uber? And I always use Uber as an example. Why? Because Uber has never turned an operating profit.
Right.
Ever. I understand investing in
All a lot of
Amazon.
fake money, smoke and mirrors, debt, credit, etc.
Right. So, in other words, any return that you're getting on your money from Uber, right, is by other rich people piling in after you. Mm-hmm. It's a pyramid scheme. Because other rich people pile in after you and they're like, oh, Uber's so cool. I love Uber. And they buy, 10,000 shares and push the share price up. So it doesn't matter that Uber doesn't turn a profit. It doesn't matter that Uber will turn around and be like, oh, we're going to offer a dividend. Okay. From what operating profit? Mm-hmm. You lost $4 billion last year. And Twitter has been the same. You look at Twitter and you'll be like, where's your your profit comes from further investment. It's a pyramid scheme. All of it's a pyramid scheme.
So how long do you give it? How long till this train flies off the end of that Back to the Future rail into the fucking canyon? 4 months?
4
you
months.
Think?
And simply because
by the time we hit summer, you are saying that it should be expected that Twitter is fully tits up.
It isn't going to be tits up all the way, I don't think. I think that they're going to find a buyer. I think that the problem is that Musk... So the problem for Musk is this. He's got two issues at play. First of all, he sold Tesla shares to generate the capital to meet the buy requirement, right? So the cash requirement of what he had to actually show up with at contract day is he had to sell Tesla shares. And that drove down the price of Tesla shares a lot. Because part of keeping share price steady is not selling, right? Mm-hmm. So if you sell shares, there's now shares in the market that people can buy, and for every share you sell, the price for the next share goes down just a little bit. Supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
If there's more shares available, then the price of the shares available goes down. So that drove. So to explain, that drove down the price of Tesla shares a little bit. But then what really hit Tesla shares was that Musk took the or a large part of the remainder of his Tesla shares and held that up as collateral for the $13 billion in cash. Again, because he had to show up to the deal with cash. Mm-hmm. He didn't have to show up with $44 billion in cash, but he had to show up with enough cash. So in order to show up with enough cash, he had to put up a large block of Tesla shares worth probably, the specifics aren't public, but going by standard rate, he'd probably have to show up with about $1 billion in Tesla shares as collateral, right? But the fact that he had to offer them as collateral further drives down the price of Tesla shares, which means that even though whatever shares he offered at the beginning, he had to offer more at the end to keep that $1 billion like bubble alive, right? This is $1 billion of Tesla shares. So when I first proposed this, right, it was let's say it was 500 shares at the beginning, which is a lot more than 500 shares. But let's say it was 500 shares at the beginning. Since the price went down, now I have to offer, let's say, another 100 shares, 200 shares of Tesla stock at the end of it to keep the collateral bubble still worth $1 billion. Well, now that Tesla, not Tesla, but rather Twitter is going under, and that those Tesla shares are part of the collateral that he has to give back to the bank if he can't perform, in other words, pay on the loan, by using revenue from Twitter, then he either owes more shares of Tesla, or all that bubble of shares that he has to be handed over to the bank. Now, for the bank, and the bank is still going to go after him for the remainder of the money. For the bank, they're like, well, what do we do with this sack of Tesla shares? Do we just hang on to them? No. We sell them to get our money back. So that further drives down the price of Tesla shares. And the problem with Musk is that Musk doesn't actually have billions of dollars in his bank accounts, right?
Right.
Musk has billions of dollars that he can borrow against.
It's all moving around fake money. Yeah. So what do you think happens to Twitter? Does Twitter exist or not in 4 months? You've given that time frame.
Oh no, it exists. It exists, but
It's owned
but I
by
mean,
5 banks.
here's the thing: it's owned by 5 banks. It's owned by a collection of investors. I mean,
And Musk is not in charge.
I think that
You think Musk is out?
Musk is definitely out.
When it falls.
The thing is, but here's the catch: if it falls out at Twitter, it falls out at SpaceX, and it falls out at Tesla. If it falls out one place because of Musk's leverage, it falls out every place.
So you're thinking that that he's likely to lose SpaceX and Tesla along the way, and these entities all exist, but they're existing in major hock.
Right, because he had to put the only thing that to explain to people the market cap. In other words, how much of stock of shares of stock that exist. How much are how much is all the shares that exist? How much is that worth? If you look at Ford, that's $50 billion. If you look at GM, that's I think about $75 billion, maybe $100 billion. If you look at say Kia, right, that's about $25-30 billion.
Yeah.
If you look at Honda, that's probably about again $75 billion. How much do you think the market cap for Tesla is right now? In other words, the price per stock, like the price per share of stock.
Don't care. Don't know.
And I want to point out, are there more Fords and GMs out on the road?
Sure.
Do they make more cars, right? And they sell a lot more cars.
Yeah.
So what do you think the market cap for Tesla shares is?
Just fire away. No one knows. No one cares. You're literally the only person here that cares. So say it.
$580 billion. $580 billion. GM is $100 some odd billion. Ford Motor Company is $50 billion.
Why so high?
Because the Uber effect.
Imaginary money.
Imaginary money. Oh my God. This is so cool. I love it. This is my new favorite thing. You gave me 100 shares of Tesla stock.
Is open. That's the yeah.
Yeah. So
All right,
and
David,
so
take us home. Take us home. It's late.
I mean it's gonna die. I mean Musk has worked himself into a tantrum.
But these things
That he can't-
the redeeming value in these things may survive the shitstorm, just with less stank.
I don't know. Like, there's two options where this goes. This either goes MySpace, or someone comes in and says, I'm going to clean up the mess, and I'm going to make this useful. And I'm going to be honest, Twitter has never truly been useful. Honestly, I think I have to say, if I were Time Warner, which currently owns MySpace, I'd be eyeing Twitter kind of hard, being like, come on, come down just a little bit more. Come down just a little bit more. And you know what? Elon, have I got a thing for you?
Buy Twitter and slam it together with MySpace into some kind of whatever the fuck that is.
Yep,
I like that.
Because I mean, they can't do anything with their MySpace property, and now I can do something with my MySpace property if I slam it together with Twitter.
Yeah, I don't know if they would just drop the MySpace identity or full. I would, out of spite, because I'm the way I am. I would do away with the Twitter brand and fold it under MySpace.
The only reason I would keep the Twitter brand is because at the end of this, that's probably the only valuable piece of the company that's going to be left is the intellectual property of Twitter.
Clearly, the code and the servers are dropping on a daily basis because nobody's minding the fucking house. No one is managing.
Did you hear about the parking lot thing?
Oh God, no.
So the day when he did the whole hardcore thing, apparently the entire maintenance crew quit, right? And the code that ran the gate for the parking lot failed. So no one could leave the parking lot to quit. So they had to call the landlord with a sawzall, like with some sort of like angle grinder or sawzall, to cut off the control arm on the parking lot gate so that people could leave to quit.
I just needed the first person in the first relatively durable vehicle to just like break it off. They probably had too many people driving fucking Teslas to run.
I know, right? These people, a bunch of Twitter employees driving Teslas, being like, nope, my battery's going to explode and I'll die.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get out of here. Thank you for joining us for the leftovers this holiday weekend. And as usual, we appreciate you sharing the word. So feel free to tell your friends how much fun our tipsy asses are. And if you're out there and you're struggling and you're moving and you're shaking and you're doing the things for the betterment of society in the face of all this violence and hate from the right,
or really just for yourself, and
or for
just
yourself,
feel pissed,
whichever, keep on keeping on. Share the word. Feel free to join us every week, usually on Thursdays. We would love.
We're bringing them back. We promise.
Well, we're being flexible because David's schedule is in flux a little bit, and that's okay. It's all right that you're in flux. No problem. We don't mind. Anyway, with that, we will sign off, and that means it's time to wish you all a good night.
Good evening.
And
good luck.